Okay, they're gone. Hey, and welcome back to the Vegan Ones. I thought I'd just make a video today just so that we can get to know each other a little bit better. I'm going to be making a how I became vegan story time, and I thought it'd be really interesting just so you can get to know me and what my history is with a vegan diet. And I thought maybe you could share your story too in the comments. It'll be really cool for us all to go down to the comment section and have a good old chat. So if you want to pause the video now and grab yourself a coffee, got mine, and yeah, we'll get into it. So my story started around 2 years ago when I first moved to university in 2017. I was 18 at the time, and I decided, like most people these days, that I was lactose intolerant. And when I say I was lactose intolerant, what I mean is I would have non-dairy milk alternative in my tea, but I would still eat a pint of ice cream on an evening, and I was having all the cheese that anyone could ever want. So when I moved away to university, I decided to embrace non-dairy milk, and I would have soya milk instead of cow's milk in my tea, my coffee, cereal, and that type of thing, just because on a morning it would make me feel much better, less groggy than having dairy and then having it sit in my stomach all day. But at that point I was still having meat. I was having red meat, white meat, fish, but only to a certain degree, because when you move away to university you realize how expensive meat and cheese is. So really I was not having that much meat on my own accord. So if I would go out to eat, I would have meat, and when I was at home I was eating meat, but the meals I was preparing myself were really vegetable based because it was cheap, cheerful, quick, easy. And so most of the time we would have peppered an onion with some spices in a tortilla wrap and calling it a fajita. That was pretty much my diet for the entire time I was there. So I continued to live like that, just having meat at home, and then when I was cooking for myself I was having vegetables mainly and eggs. So realistically I was having more of a vegetarian diet than a vegan one or the one of a meat eater. And so 2018 came around, and in early 2018 my boyfriend decided that he was going to make the jump and he was going to go full vegan. And props to him, because he did this overnight. One day he ate meat, the next day he didn't, and it was craziness. He was just so good. He made basically no mistakes and he just went into it, and I was so proud of him, and it was a really good experience. And it was actually really interesting for me because I am a massive foodie. I love food so much. I'm so interested in food, how it's cooked, where it's from, and everything like that. So when James became vegan, it opened up a whole new range of foods and ingredients that I'd never come across before. And it was just so exciting to me that there was all of this food that I'd never even really heard of. Not that I'd grown up in a sheltered life or anything, but veganism wasn't really anything we talked about at home or anything that I'd ever really learnt about or known about. So all of this new food like tofu and seitan and all the different meat alternatives and all the different meal ideas, they were just so exciting to me, and I just couldn't believe that there was all this new stuff out there. And it sort of encouraged me to become even more interested in food. I wanted to know everything about it. I wanted to be able to cook the vegan food. And so when my boyfriend became vegan, we actually ate vegan together all the time. Whenever I was with him, I ate vegan, and we went out to places to eat vegan food, and I started incorporating more into it into my normal life. And at that point I was living at home, so I was actually still eating meat. I was still eating what my mum put for me on the table, and yeah, and I didn't really think to myself, oh, I should become a vegan now. So then it was 2019, a whole year later, and I'd been living a year in a flexitarian diet, and a lot of the food I ate, as I said, was plant-based, and a lot of the meals I was making were, and all things like that. And I gained so much knowledge about plant milk, meat alternatives, cheese, what's good, what wasn't good, meal ideas, how to adapt meals to make them vegan. One of the first ones I did was a vegan mac and cheese that was actually cheesy and gooey, and it was so good. And I remember eating it and thinking, you know, this is just so good, and it's really not that different, and I don't know why more people don't do this. But there was never that drive in me at that point to become fully vegan, and I think the reason for that was that there was nobody pushing me or any sort of reason for me to be in my mind, because I was so caught up in this idea that eating meat is completely normal and just what we do and how we live. So as I said, 2019 came around, and in April I decided to become a full vegetarian. So I was no longer accepting meat from family and friends, that type of thing. I was only ever eating vegetarian food, and I loved the change. I didn't find it hard at all. There was no difficulty for me. I didn't even really feel as though I was making a transition because of the way I'd been living for the past year or so, 2 years. I lived like that for a few months, and then this month I decided it's time to go vegan. And when I became vegetarian, I always knew that at some point I wanted to achieve my final goal of being a vegan. I just needed some time to come to terms with it, to be able to have a drive to do it, to learn some things. One of my main drivers is climate change, and I saw statistics on beef production and the damage that it does to the planet, and I was just blown away by this impact, and that no one else was talking about it, and that we were still allowing all of this beef to be produced. And for what reason, really? For us to have a tiny amount of beef in our diets, and we don't even need that much protein. It was just crazy to me. So that was my driving factor, and it was such a good decision for me, and I have been so proud of myself since. I wanted to make this video to show you that your journey towards being a vegan does not have to be an overnight change. Yeah, you can do it like my boyfriend did and just go from meat eater and eating dairy and egg and everything like that to the next day, completely cutting it out. But I know it's such a hard change when your brain is wired up to the cultural norm that meat is what you have every day, and for most meals. It's hard to get yourself out of that mindset and out of that thought process. Really, it doesn't matter if it takes you a year, 2 years, 3 years. Anything in the right direction is good, and as long as you're the one that is wanting to make the change, it's up to you, and you need to go at your own speed and your own pace, because that's how it's going to be sustainable for you in the future. If you go from eating a Big Mac and bacon sandwiches one day to only eating meat alternative the next, and you've been so used to that diet, chances are you're gonna revert, because your body's gonna miss that, your mind's gonna miss that. At the end of the day, this food, it's almost an addiction, and going cold turkey might not be the best option. So if you're really wanting to become vegan and you're struggling, I would honestly recommend the route that I took. So I hope that was interesting for you. I know it might not have been, but I thought it was good to get my story out there, just to show you, as I said, that everyone's journey is different, and some people's journeys are slower than others, and any movement in the right direction towards eating a plant-based diet and making the world a happier place is a good one. So if you want to share your story down in the comments, I'd love to read it. And if you're not vegan yet and you're just wanting some advice, you can pop down there too, and I'm sure there'll be people who are happy to help you. If you're looking for more information, then you can always go over to my blog. It's www.thevegaноnes.com, and yeah, there'll be loads of information over there as well. So thank you for watching. I'm really happy that you stayed and watched my video, and as I said, I hope it was interesting to someone, and I'll see you next time. Bye!